Well, it's an honor having you here, Danielle.
Thank you.
How's life been?
It has actually just been so beautiful lately. Yeah, it's been, I had a pretty, like I said, pretty crazy month, and being in South Korea for Worlds was challenging in some aspects. There's a lot of 5G everywhere. And we are living in these apartment buildings that were made for the competition, but they're selling them afterwards. So the whole thing was covered in plastic. So we're living in, you couldn't take any of the plastic off of the furniture and stuff. So it was a really interesting environment, and there's just a lot of different energies that I'm used to being in, beautiful grounded Perth. So I'm very grateful. I've been back for about a week now, very grateful to be back and kind of connected more with the earth and the ocean and the things that really fill my soul. So yeah, but it was beautiful in its own way.
Yes, but a bit hectic, and it can be overwhelming where the technology thing is going. I often get overwhelmed. We were just in Mexico City, that just is huge and mind-blowing in terms of population and pollution and all of these new evolving technologies, and then Los Angeles as well. And it is refreshing coming back to Perth.
Yeah, it's so nice. I also got a chance when I was over there to see North Korea, which was a very eye-opening experience, because I think it was really bizarre, but at the core of it, it just makes you so grateful for the amount of freedom that we have living in Australia and the lives that we live, when a lot of people don't have that even as a possibility, because they are living in very intense circumstances where they don't have the freedom to make choices or travel or live a life that they choose. So
in so much of the world,
Yeah, exactly. So I think if anything, seeing that, I always try and use those as rather than having guilt in those situations, use that feeling to kind of fuel, what I believe that I want to do in life and inspire other people, because there's no point in, feeling guilty and letting that hold us back and not living to our own potential because other people don't have the possibility to. I think we should rather do the opposite and, because we have that freedom, do that for those who don't,
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about your book. How exciting.
Yes, it's very exciting. Yeah.
So The Unlikely Olympian. Let's talk about that for starters, and then the bigger picture of leaning into your fears to cultivate your dreams. What's the tagline of the book?
Yeah, step into your fears to achieve your dreams.
Yeah, I love that.
I had, hence the title of the book, had a very unusual journey to the Olympic Games. And many people, at least from the experience that I've had in meeting other athletes in the past, have kind of just been on that trajectory that most of their life, and they're quite talented, and, people know that that's part of their future. But it was very much the opposite for me. So I actually started doing synchronized swimming when I was 8 years old in Canada. And I did swimming, but it was a bit boring, doing laps. And I did gymnastics, but I'm a bit too tall and uncoordinated for that. So my mom found, the perfect combination, which was synchronized swimming. And after a few years, I just absolutely fell in love with the sport. And
it's an amazing sport. Yeah. It's just incredible.
And I think it doesn't get enough credit, I believe, in this world. I think people still are very much in the mindset that it's the Esther Williams, movies of the 1930s where, old ladies kind of flutter around in flower caps. But if anyone gets the chance to even just go on YouTube and search, what it has evolved into today, it is really one of the most miraculous sports out there. We do a lot where we kind of defy not only physics, but what you think are the capacities of the human body, being able to swim to the music, and, we need the capacity of any high endurance athlete, but while also the flexibility of a ballerina and the acrobatic ability of a diver, and to be able to do all of that, while holding our breath 50% of the time and also upside down, in complete synchronization.
And how long are you holding the breath at times? Like that's like the pranayama of a yogi as well. So it's truly everything involved.
Yeah. So they have recently put in a rule where you're not allowed to be under for more than 45 seconds, but usually it's quite different. You're not just sitting and holding your breath on a resting heart rate, which can be a lot easier. So our heart rate is running at sometimes 160 to 180 beats per minute. And, you are up for 5 seconds, under for 10, up for 15, under for 25. So it's kind of understanding how to, when you're above the water, to have a controlled release of that breath. So you can also learn how to manage your heart rate. And, to the point where I got to a stage where I could, even though my heart rate is pounding, swimming, learn how to slowly release my breath to be able to slow that heart rate down so I could recover faster, within the 4 minutes of the routine. So, that's also, just in and of itself, a tiny aspect of the sport that is really, really different from what a lot of athletes have to deal with in the sports that they do. Yeah. And I think that, different aspect of synchronized swimming allowed me to fall in love with it, but also, the beautiful creative side, because a lot of sports, are contact sports or combative sports are very much strategy oriented, and our sport is more on the creative side. How can you express movement in a physical way to be able to show the theme of a routine, which is a really beautiful combination of that, masculine and feminine side. And so, from a young age, I just, was completely enamored with it. And the only problem was I just honestly was never that good.
Really?
I was kind of sucked, to say the least. I'm not a naturally born synchronized swimmer. I don't have the body type of a synchro swimmer. It's similar to kind of a ballerina. You want to be long and lean, and I'm not naturally flexible. I in the past have struggled with my posture. You need beautiful toe points. I had none of this stuff. And I was very much always the girl on the team that was like a great team player, but was never really that good. And I added to the morale of the team, but not necessarily the skill. So I knew that, throughout my career, and I just continued to do it because I loved it and I had a true passion for it. But I never thought I would be going anywhere. And at that point in my life, that was fine because I didn't have any expectations. So, I was lucky enough I got to national championships in Canada, and but I competed as like the reserve on the team. So, very much.
When was that?
Back in 2010, 2009, 2010, I went to nationals in Canada, and I thought that was the end of the line. In 2010, I was in my last year of high school, and at that point there was really nowhere else for me to go. If you're the very elite in the sport, you get to try out for the national team, but that was not me. So I quote unquote retired at 18 years old and kind of I walked away, and I thought that my time was done. I think back now, if I told that girl in 2010 who never thought much of herself, but also struggled with her self-confidence and never thought she would make anything of herself, that, merely 6 years later, she'd be going to the Olympics, I think, that would have blown my mind. And it still does sometimes when I reflect on it. And long story short, I stayed involved. I stayed involved in my sport because I loved it, and I did it as a master's level. So, more recreationally. In high school, I was training about 20 hours a week on top of, going to school every day. And at master's level, we may be doing 5-6 hours a week. And I let, the conditions of society pull me down a different path. I went into university because I kind of thought that's what you had to do, studied something I wasn't really that passionate about, and traveled. So I was lucky enough. I went to Copenhagen and lived in Denmark on exchange for about 6 months. And after that, I came back to Vancouver in 2013, ready to knuckle down, finish my degree, and then, go down the path of like getting a job and, doing, the traditional route of society. And I felt really deeply unsatisfied looking back. And in hindsight, I was clearly on the wrong path of life because I just always believed that there was something more inside of me that was greater to give than me studying art history at university, which is what I was doing. And no offense to art historians, it's beautiful, but there's not a lot of areas you can expand into in that. And I remember writing down that I was just bored with life. I just felt no exhilaration for being alive. And about 3 weeks after I kind of had that low, I was at training one evening, and we were doing something called highlights. So highlights in synchronized swimming is when we build a human pyramid pretty much underwater, and we all egg beater up to the surface to create a spring. And one of the teammates on the top jumps up, and usually they jump a couple meters in the air, do a flip, and land in the water. So it's, miraculous to say the least. And my teammate went up and she came straight down on my head. And I ended up getting a concussion. and so at the time I was in university full time, I was working a few jobs, and I was, doing synchro for fun, and I had to stop doing all of that. And I was literally, told to lay in a dark room, rest, recover, no TV, no music, no, pretty much nothing. The only thing I could do was meditate. And it was, I always feel, fortunate that I don't have depression, but I think anyone that is forced to be in that state would fall into a sort of depression because, I was told to do nothing, sit in a dark room, and everything that I loved was taken away from me. And I think that negative mindset also, fueled my struggle to see any possible positive outcome. And, there was no answers at the time. I went to different doctors and they said, you just kind of have to lay in a dark room and recover. And it's hard because, you don't have a scar, you're not bleeding, you can't get a cast, you can't get a CAT scan. There's, not a magic pill that you can take to recover. It's literally your brain. And we have one of them. And it's so unknown that was the only, way to recover that they could suggest for me. And I just fell into a really dark state where I just, felt a lot of self-pity, which now looking back, I wish I had a bit more gratitude, but it all happens the way it's supposed to. And
how old were you at the time?
I was 20, just about to turn 21, and very much asking, why is this happening to me? I remember calling my friends at night and just sobbing on the phone, like, what is the lesson in this? I just don't understand. And, I think that the beautiful part is when you're at the darkest part of your life, and those, and all the doors closed, there's always going to be a window or something that opens. And for me, I spent my 21st birthday concussed. And the day after my 21st birthday, I got a miraculous opportunity, to say the least. And I was on the phone with one of my friends, and she was wishing me happy birthday. And at the time, she got a message from the assistant national team coach of the Australian synchronized swimming team, who reached out to her. Her and myself were both dual citizens. Our parents are Aussie. We both lived in Canada, and we both did synchronized swimming, quite random and lucky. And the assistant national team coach reached out to us because they were looking for more athletes to try out for the Australian team, in the hopes of qualifying the team for the Olympic Games. And that was one of those moments where an opportunity like that doesn't come around twice in a lifetime. And at first I was very much hit with my limiting beliefs of there's just absolutely no way this is possible, and I think that those limiting beliefs for many people wouldn't have even seen that as an opportunity because it just was so beyond the possibilities of what I could have ever imagined for my life. And I really sat with it for a while, and I was in this really dark state, and that seemed like a light at the end of the tunnel, just something to get me through. And I, as much as there was so much fear that was overcoming me, I looked forward in my life, and I imagined myself, it was the end of 2013 at the time. I imagined myself in 2016 watching the Olympic Games and sitting there and imagining if I had just tried. If I was sitting there and I had given it a shot and I had failed, I knew that I would have been more proud of myself and happy with the outcome than realizing that I never went for it because I was afraid. And I sat with this feeling, and I realized that I would rather try and quote unquote fail than always wonder what if. And that almost like, as much as there was fear, there was more fear of not reaching the potential that I believed could have been inside of me, because I just always had belief in this light that there was more for me in this life, than to be an art historian, to say the least. And that sparked just an absolute fire inside of me. And it kind of gave me hope that I was needing in that darkness. And, I ended up looking, I think that positive attitude also helped me, the biology of belief. I believed that I saw a light at the end of the tunnel. So I started to improve through my concussion because I was more positive about the outcome. And then I started to get back into training, and as there was all of these things up against me, right? I was never really that good of a synchronized swimmer. I always struggled with my weight. I was in Canada, I was concussed. But within 6 weeks of getting that call, I was on the plane to Perth. I'd never been here before, didn't know anyone here. And I came to a training camp. And I was one of 16 girls at the time here in Perth. And we were training at HBF Stadium and out in the 40-degree weather. So my Canadian skin was not really sure what was happening. And as much as, I got there and I honestly sucked. Like I wasn't really that good. But more than that, I saw the possibility of what could be, because I was one of 16 girls who was trying out for 8 spots to be on the team, whereas in Canada I was one of hundreds. And that continued to fuel me. And I continued to work really, really hard. And within about 7 months of getting that original opportunity, I had officially dropped out of university, left all my friends and family behind, and moved to Perth and literally took a leap of faith and hope and gave it my absolute all, because I just, even if there was a 1% chance of this being me, of me getting to the Olympics, there always has to be someone that's the 1%. And I kept following that belief, and I moved to Perth, and being in the right environment, I started to improve. And that improvement allowed me to actually make it on the team. And within about less than 12 months of getting my original concussion, I was on the Australian team, walking out on stage at the World Cup representing Australia, which just seemed absolutely surreal. What I was able to do with a lot of hard work, having those sacrifices and putting myself in the right environment, and most of all, having the right mindset through all of that. I was kept moving forward and fostering that belief in me. And there was so many challenges along the way. We don't receive a lot of funding in Australia for synchronized swimming, and the national team members have to pay sometimes up to $20,000 a year to be on the team. And on top of that, you have to pay for life. And so I received a lot of support from my partner at the time and my family. But also, I was working in Leaderville at a bar until 1 a.m. Then I'd walk home and have a few hours sleep, wake up at 5 and walk to training because I couldn't afford to buy a car. I always want to make sure when I share my story that I shared that, it wasn't just a fairy tale. There was a lot of hard work that was put in there because, you need to do those hard yards. But as I kept holding on to that belief and that positivity and that possibility, and I think that combined with my devout passion for my sport and my ability to have an open mind and improve along the way really facilitated me to improve and be able to make it happen. And I reached this point where we had qualified the Australian team for the Olympic Games after the 2015 World Championship. And we were at a point where we had qualified as a team, but we had to compete against each other to make the Olympic team. And it was this really interesting point where, I had always done synchro because I loved it, and also because of the friendships and the camaraderie that I had. And all of a sudden your teammates are your greatest competitors. And I really had to go into the few months leading up into Olympic team trials and learning how to have a open and improvement mindset and learn how to work smarter and optimize, the strengths inside of me, and also work on those weaknesses to be able to have that balance to make myself a desirable candidate to have on the team. And in leading into our Olympic team trials in 2016, I was feeling really good, feeling really strong. But I also, a few days before, I was kind of overwhelmed with stress and at the realization that as much as, I said I would rather try and fail than always wonder what if, when you're kind of faced with that possibility of failure in the face, it is terrifying. Mm-hmm. And, I had given up everything in my life financially, and walked away from my family in Canada. And I was in a relationship at the time, which was struggling from the stress of the circumstances. And I was sitting there, a few days before trials and just sitting with my thoughts and journaling. And I had this beautiful, aha moment where I was overwhelmed with the realization that as much as it was about, getting to the Olympics and achieving a dream, it was more about proving to myself that I was enough. And by the process of me harnessing the power that was inside of me and really fostering that belief and overcoming those limiting beliefs, doing something that I was absolutely passionate about and sacrificing a lot, putting myself in the right environment, I realized that I had done it. Because the success for me was fulfillment, the fulfillment of realizing that I was good enough and worthy enough to go after something that was so grand. And if I was going to make it on the Olympic team at that point, that would just be the cherry on top. But me existing in my dream was the power of going after it with everything inside of me and going after it with a passion, and also having gratitude along the way and being present along the way, because I truly loved every day, even though there were so many hard days. And even though there were so many days, where you kind of question what you're doing. But when I put my head on the pillow at the end of the night, I was so proud of what I was doing, and I was so in love with what I was doing. And that kind of aha moment in me, gave me the inspiration and the motivation to write my story down in the format of a book, which I've just released, and share with people the process of how I did it, but also the reminder that, the beauty of this life is that we have to live it for the journey. We have to live it for the process. And I think we can quite often get caught up in the accolades that we want to achieve along the way, and kind of ticking the boxes and saying that we have all these things, the nice house, the car, the grades, the amount of salary per year, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, if you're doing something you love, working hard at it, and enjoying the process, like, you are living your dream. You are, every day is a dream. The dream isn't something that is at the end of the road. The dream is the process. And I really hope to, get that across to people in the power that is my, really unique story. And also, through a lot of the learning lessons that I had along the way. And I think, my unique journey will really resonate with the people that, the average Joe, because you hear a lot of Olympians go out there and, they were just really naturally talented and gifted, and which is beautiful. And I think that shouldn't be taken away from them. But the fact that, I was an average person that just fostered belief and passion, and I made something great happen with an opportunity that I leapt into, releasing myself of the fear. And I truly believe that is a potential within all of us.
Super inspiring. Thank you for sharing all that. What a journey.
Thank you.
During those times where you didn't think you were good enough, but you could feel the fear, but also the foresight of the regret if you didn't just give it a go. During those times, did you have any mentors or resources that were helping you foster this mindset that you have cultivated of believing in yourself and stepping into your fears? Did you have any resources at the time or mentors that helped you with that? Or was it just bubbling in yourself and it just happened through willpower? Or what was your experience with that?
I think that part of it is innate in me, like that positivity and that belief is within me. But also, I was fortunate to work with a lot of amazing sports psychologists who helped me foster kind of the mental techniques of being able to overcome those limiting factors. And additionally, one of the many reasons that I love my sport is this. We go out there and do something that is insanely difficult. And most of the time, we don't always smile, but most of the time we pop up and you see us smiling, even though internally you would never know that we feel like we're dying on the inside, like your body is lacking oxygen and your brain is screaming at your body to breathe.
It's just part of it. You got to smile.
Yeah. And so we kind of, we learn through the years to quote unquote, fake it till you make it. And I think some people don't like that statement, but for me, it more, I think of it in the way of embodying the highest version of myself to learn how to step into that and overcome the fears that are ingrained in the humanness within me. And that kind of within my sport helped me do that in the other aspects of life. Even though I struggled so much, with my body image or my mental capacity, just continuing to remind myself to fake it till I make it, step into the highest version of myself. And the more often that I do that with the more belief and and power, the more often I level up into that human being. And I think then life is now just kind of a cyclical version of continuing to step into that higher version of myself to become that until I get to the next level.
Beautiful. And then you mentioned the gratitude kind of fueling that as well seems vitally important. Again, you mentioned as well that predominant experience of people going after the dream but focused on the outcome, whether it's the medal or the degree or whatever it is, and we're so conditioned in that in our society to be so fixated on that outcome, and that can just crush exactly what you're speaking of, that flow that can propel us into our dreams. To do it for the love of it, for the joy of it, really is vital.
Yeah, I think that we kind of live in this grind society, the glorification of busy, and I definitely get caught up in it sometimes as well, but it's just that kind of, they try and force us to believe that we need to push, keep pushing until we get to that goal, and achieving goals is like this level of success, that we should all strive for. But I think that it's so easy to get caught up in that and then look back and realize, where did the time go? What is the point of doing something you hate to achieve something at the end of the day? Because when you get there, it's not going to feel satisfying, and I think that was beautiful about my experiences because I enjoyed it so much. I loved every single day, and I had a really interesting experience. When I actually got the chance to compete at the Olympics, we swam 2 routines, a 3-minute and a 4-minute routine. So the accumulation of my career came down to 7 minutes of my life, and I had spent hundreds of hours in the pool. And those 7 minutes go like that, right? And it just completely disappears. And because especially I'm in this high performance mind of focus, that because I'm in such a present state, you almost can't even remember it. And standing up there on stage afterwards, realizing that, it's all over, can feel really unsatisfying if you haven't enjoyed the process of it. Because I think people have this expectation that when they reach this goal, then they're going to be happy. When they reach this goal, then they're going to be fulfilled. Then when they reach this goal, then everything is going to accumulate and it's going to be great. But then that just leads people to being unsatisfied and can then, create the next goal, which they strive for and then achieve and then feel unsatisfied. But I think it just reminding people to come back to the everyday, the beauty in every moment as much as you can. Life isn't, I sometimes can get in a state of like, life is this magical unicorn, beautiful fairyland. And it isn't always, but if we can be in that state as much as possible, you'll see the beauty in every day, and you don't need to place your self-worth or fulfillment on a goal.
Yeah, totally. It's a common predicament, and I've had quite a few elite athletes on the podcast now, and it's a really common situation for even people that have been way, way up there, like Phelps and so forth, and achievement galore, and the quote-unquote American dream, and all of that, the pinnacle of success, quote-unquote. And then the struggle that can come with that if one isn't connected with their joy and their deepest self. It's just what goes up must come down. And if we're not rooted in what's real or a deeper contentment and joy after all that success, apparent success, it's really dark. And it's super common, the struggles that can come after such success or retirement, that kind of identity crisis, like especially for, athletes or those in the spotlight or it doesn't really matter like what role, but typically if one has had a lot of praise, a lot of attention, been in the spotlight, reinforcing that identity. This is who I am. This is what I've achieved. Yeah. And then that gets stripped away. Like, who the fuck am I? Yeah. I thought this was who I was. And like it's crushing. But if you've got the awareness, like that darkness, like what you shared of being in the darkness after the concussion and so forth, it seems like maybe didn't carry blessings at the time, but it helped you to have this beautifully balanced mindset and heart set, to have the perspective that you seem to have really in abundance, so that struggle and that darkness can really be a precious time for connecting with who we truly are. Because like we've been kind of chatting about, most of us have been socialized to look for who we are in the award, in the praise, in the external validation, but none of that, no matter how positive, really feels that good. It gives us a brief dopamine hit, but then it's gone.
And then it's gone.
And then we're trying to hold on to it, trying to recreate it, and it's a whole melodramatic trip, but that's our center of gravity in our society. So it's really beautiful to hear these conversations, and your book, I can't wait to read it and really help people gain insight, a deeper connection to their purpose, their joy beyond the striving and the achieving, which is good as well. Yeah. It's all part of the balance.
Yeah.
But, I can't wait to sink my teeth into it and
thank you.
head into it.
Yeah, I think it's what gave me so much perspective in my journey, and to be able to have the gratitude along the way is because I had walked away from my career and I had seen how 10 years went by so fast. And I truly thought at that point when I was 18 years old that it was over. And then getting kind of this, Phoenix rising moment to jump back into it and recreate myself, I kind of vowed that I would have more presence and enjoyment along the way than I did in the past. And I think that's because I got a second chance at it. And I really tried as much as I could to instill that belief in my teammates as well, without being, patronizing or condescending, but as much as, I said that to them then, having conversations with them after the Olympics, I think they've realized, you can only understand it if you've lived it within your own experience. You can only tell someone so much until they have to move through it themselves. Because, the few months before the Olympics, I truly tried to wake up every single day and be like, what a blessing this is. What a blessing that I, had to go to the pool for 6 hours and swim in the water for 6 hours.
And did that
and
come
3 hours
naturally for you, or was that was the gratitude as natural as the determination you've been speaking of, or was that more of a practice of mindfulness?
I think it was a combination. I think the gratitude came because, like I said, I never believed that I would be there.
Right. So
that gave me this beautiful insight into really cherishing each and every moment. But it was also a practice. I wanted to treasure it as much as possible. So I did a lot of journaling. I wrote a lot down, and I would consciously, wake up every morning and remind myself how grateful I was. Even the moments when it was hard, because, I think it's sometimes easy to say that now, but when you're sore and tired and haven't slept and you have to go to the pool, swim for 6 hours and do 3 hours on land, and you don't get a day off for the next 6 days, it can kind of overwhelm you. But I think I always find, looking into the future and reminding that future self of the beautifulness of the now is really helpful, because I kind of looked forward and realized that as much as, I am grateful for today, but it's also really fucking hard. Someday I'm gonna look back at this and reminisce with a lot of joy, and kind of reminding myself of that helped me exist in that state as much as possible.
Beautiful. Please run us through the experience of being in the Olympics and the opening ceremony and just the ecstasy of what that must have been like. It must have been great, huh?
Yeah, it was. I always feel sometimes hesitant in sharing my experience at the Olympics, because it was so wonderful in so many aspects, but also, the TV and advertising kind of build it up to be this, they really glorify it, which it should be. But not every moment is a movie montage,
Yeah.
And they kind of make the ads on TV seem like every moment is a beautiful montage. And something that I was kind of jarred with when I got there is we arrived at, the beginning of August, literally about 3 years ago today. And we didn't compete until the end of the games. So as much as you're from at home, you're watching the Olympics every day and you're seeing who's winning and losing, but we had to get up every day and go train. We had to get up every day and go train for 6 hours in the pool. And that was kind of I didn't really realize that before walking into it, because you only ever see it from the spectator point of view. So it really was a practice of releasing myself of expectations. And the more that I did that, I found the beauty in the moments that I didn't expect to happen. And one of my favorite memories from the games is actually getting to walk into the opening ceremony. And I had always been that girl growing up that was obsessed with the Olympics. I would always watch it every 2 years and 4 years of the winter and summer games, and like sit down and kind of stop my life for 2 weeks and just be so proud of all the athletes. And I literally would watch the opening ceremonies, and as the athletes would walk in, like I would cry because I was so proud of these people that I didn't know that had achieved something so great. So it felt completely like I was in an alternate universe getting to go there myself. And a lot of athletes don't get the chance to walk in the game and the opening ceremony because it's quite an exhausting experience. You're not allowed to sit down. You're not allowed to go to the toilet. You're not allowed to eat for about 3 to 6 hours, which is quite hard if you're an athlete that's, either training or resting. So we were in the village and we were all ready at about 5 p.m. And then, there's about 10,500 athletes that are shuffling themselves into buses that fit about 30 people. So hundreds and hundreds of buses are coming up and we're all piling into them. And then we all are flying down the highway because the village was about 45 minutes from the arena, and they actually stopped all of the traffic in Rio so all these athletes could get to the opening ceremonies. And we walked out and you can feel like the vibration of the crowd on the inside of these like 100,000 people, like just exuding euphoric excitement to be able to be at the opening ceremony. And Australia's obviously at the front of the alphabet. So we wrapped ourselves around the stadium, and Anna Mears was the flag bearer at the time holding the flag. And they have the first line of about 10 Aussies. They pick who they want to be there. So it's just well-known Olympians. And then, we had shuffled our way to the front because we're like, we're going to get on TV, going to wave to our family. And as we were, piling in, you have to walk through this dark tunnel to be able to get to the other side and walk into the arena. And it was just this beautiful, like I saw it as this beautiful metaphor of, walking through this darkness, like together, and we were holding my teammate's hand and to be able to get to the light of the other side. And when we were walking through this dark tunnel, one of the Aussies at the back just yells, "Aussie, Aussie, Aussie." And everyone goes, "Oi, oi, oi." And, we're just shuffling really slow. So we just go, "Aussie, oi, Aussie, oi," like over and over and over and over again. I felt like I was chanting from like the depths of my soul, especially for someone, something that I struggled with when I moved here is, when I first moved here, I opened my mouth and people would go, "Oh, you're not Aussie. You don't belong here." And some of my teammates,
they'd literally say that.
Well, yeah, they're like, "Oh, you're not Australian." I'm like, actually, my whole family's Aussie. My parents are from Sydney. My whole family's Australian. My grandparents fought in the war for Australia. But I sound different than you, so you think that I don't deserve to be Australian. So I kind of had that a bit of an identity crisis for a while when I was here, but really connecting to my roots. And I had a beautiful experience of getting to go to the War Memorial Museum in Canberra, which, showed me my heritage and really tied me to my family line that was in Australia. So by the time that I got to Rio and I was chanting that Aussie oi over and over again, I felt really, truly Aussie. And, no matter my accent or anything. And we all have our phones out. Everyone's trying to capture the moment. But I was really conscious as I was about to walk out into the stadium, I put my phone down and I you step from the darkness into the light of the stadium and I existed in as much presence as I possibly could. And I felt like, in that moment, I truly became an Olympian. And it was just a cocktail of emotions, but it was one of those experiences that I didn't expect, and I truly hold on to as much as I can and will for the rest of my life. And I love to get the chance to share those experiences with people, because I think I was really blessed to be able to go and represent the country, but also I was representing the country. So I think it's my duty to, if anyone wants to know, they get to hear about anything that happened when I was there, because I wasn't there just for me. I was there representing Australia. And that was also an incredible honor.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
So you've decided to retire.
Yes.
How's that feeling?
It feels really good, actually. I am about a week and a half into retirement. So
congratulations.
I mean, thank you. It's pretty new. But I was getting to the point. So I was competing in South Korea in July as part of Australia's first mixed duet. So I was swimming with a male partner, and it was a really beautiful experience and a great way to kind of transition out of my career, because the level of that we had to compete at wasn't what I was used to. It was a bit lower just because he was an amateur. He's new in the sport. So it was kind of a good way to move and transition out of the sport. And after the Olympics, I had definitely struggled in the sense that, I had set my entire life to go to a certain point, which was August 18th and 19th, 2016, because I had given up everything. So when the Olympics was over and the following day, I actually didn't know that the world went beyond those days, so I definitely kind of fell back into this sense of, what is my purpose? Like, what is beyond this for me? Because at the end of the day, you can only be an athlete for so long. And that kind of, I had to cultivate over the past few years. And I feel now that since I have found my purpose beyond the pool, that I feel really excited to set out on that journey. And I think part of that is getting the chance to share my story and share the learning lessons that I cultivated along the way to be able to help other people do what they want. Because, and this is something that I speak about in my book, but I believe that, there's a difference between our gifts and our passions. And I was really passionate about synchro, but I was never gifted at it. So, I would never succeed at the, world level sense. I would have never won a gold medal. It wasn't about that for me, and that was fine. I just did it because I loved it. But I think, when we learn to harness our gifts, just the stuff inside of us that comes naturally, that when each of us is placed on this earth, we are given this special thing within us to cultivate. When we learn how to combine those gifts with those passions, that's when we truly learn to shine. And I think combining my passion for synchro and development and overcoming the limitations of the mind, along with my gift, is I believe I have a gift in sharing that story, in sharing that message, and through words and through speaking and getting to speak to people and inspire others. I'm really excited about setting on that next passion of my life, which is, obviously through my book that's just launched. And I'm going to be working with individuals through my online program and kind of group coaching and helping them find those aspects within themselves that they can cultivate to let themselves shine and exist within their own dreams.
Super exciting. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing that next chapter unfold. And I can feel the wisdom and the passion, and it's flowing organically. It's really beautiful to see and feel. So really blessings for that next chapter. Just a bit of practicality for listeners. So for people out there, say the average Joe, like we brought up before, and maybe they're just rattled with fear, fear of being seen, fear of being heard, fear of success, fear of public speak. I mean, there's so many fucking fears. Yeah. I mean, the fear of public speaking is apparently one of the biggest, the fear of being seen, the fear of being heard. All of these fears, so you got this message of stepping into your fears, and yes, let's get the book, read it.
Yes, exactly.
But can you speak to that kind of person, the average Joe, that they don't really know what their deepest purpose is? Maybe they're just in a kind of job that it's paying the bills and it's somewhat comfortable, but they're feeling like, shit, I want to go after something that will fulfill a deeper purpose, but I don't know what it is. I'm scared shitless to even look.
Yeah.
I'm scared to take that risk.
Yeah.
Can we speak to that kind of person, if anyone like that is listening, because it's such a common predicament to be in, especially in particular places, like Perth is one of those places where that's pretty common. It's pretty common for people to take the safer route and do something that's much more predictable and okay, this is much safer.
Yeah.
But it's not coming from a deeper pulse of purpose and joy. Can you speak to that kind of person, of how they can step into that fear, step into that doubt, and really take that leap like you've done time and time again?
Yeah, I think that there's a few aspects to that. Is, you know, it is finding that purpose within you, which a lot of people, they don't have. And I feel quite blessed to have had that kind of created in me throughout life. So I think the first step is, if you are in the unknowing of you just want something different, but you don't know what, is to be curious. Mm-hmm. You know, I think that allow yourself to explore different areas of life that make you excited. Because if you want to do something else with your life, but you're not sure what, you're never going to know unless you kind of explore. Or
even make you a bit scared.
Yeah, exactly.
It scares the shit out of you to do it anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So go explore, do something that makes you excited. Go, whether it be like, listen, I think we're literally in a time in this world where we are so blessed to have pretty much every resource at our fingertips with the internet, you know? So look into areas that fascinate you. You know, go do a course, go travel, go learn something new, challenge yourself in that aspect, and be curious, and know that you don't always have to have the right answer straight away, because everyone, I think the beauty of life is, you know, we're meant here to find our purpose, but you have to sometimes do other things to be able to get there in the long run. So try something out. If it doesn't work, that's okay. And then from that, it's rewiring what we think of as failure. You know, I think this failure is given this really negative connotation in this world. And I like to redefine it in the sense of explaining it to people that you only truly fail when you refuse to get back up, and you refuse to learn from the lesson that has been given to you by pushing you down to the ground. You know, because as long as we continue to get back up and learn from that, we will continue to grow and move forward. And then the third part I would say is stepping into our fears comes from, like I said, that embodiment of what we can believe is our higher self. So for me, something that truly helped was faking it till I make it. And like I said, not being fake, not being inauthentic, but stepping into what you believe is inside of you. Because I know that we all have this inner critic, this inner voice, but I know that below all of us, within our soul, we have this small belief that we can be great. Because I believe that everyone has that ability within them. It's just learning to tap into that quietness inside of us and let it blossom into the beautiful truth of who that we can be. And that comes from, if you don't hear that voice at the moment, it comes back to being present, giving yourself the time and the space. And for me, I love to meditate. For other people, it doesn't have to be meditation, but allowing presence and stillness in your life. And like I said, this society is so busy that we try and fill everything. You know, we try and fill our days and our moments. If we're not busy doing stuff, we're on social media, we're listening to podcasts, which is all wonderful. We have a busy schedule, we're watching TV, Netflix, but allow yourself some stillness with just yourself to be able to hear that voice inside of you, that intuition, which is telling you and pushing you to the direction that you need to go in. And I think that combination of finding that passion and being curious, redefining what failure is, that it only is a learning lesson when we choose to stand up, continue to stand up from it. And then as well, learning how to step into those fear through finding presence in our life and embodying our higher self will really help individuals, prosper into what they want to be.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Thank you.
That's a great place to wrap this up, Danielle. Where can people get in touch with you and book in for the book launch and all that? Do you want to mention that?
Yep. So my book is available on Amazon now. Like I said, it's called The Unlikely Olympian. So you can get it on paperback or Kindle, and the Audible is coming out as well. If you're in Perth, we have a book launch August 11th, which is going to be at May Street Larder. And it's kind of a bit of a book launch and dream manifestation session, because as much as, you know, this book is very much a story about my journey, it's also, you know, how to foster that belief and that power inside all of us. So I wanted to make my launch as well kind of not just about me, but about others. And then I'll be having a book launch in Vancouver in September as well, because that's where I'm originally from. And if not, you can always find me on Instagram, Danielle.KW, and I'll have the information there for my book, and going to be launching my program to really dive deeper and work with individuals to be able to foster that dream and that belief within all of them. Because I think I believe by all of us pursuing our passions and doing what we love, we can uplift the consciousness of this planet. And I think that is our purpose and our mission this lifetime, because everyone has something unique and beautiful inside of them. And our job is to be able to find that so we can shine. We don't have to change the world by traveling and helping other countries and volunteering. And that is beautiful, but you can change your world by doing something that you love, because when you step into that vibration, the beauty is everything around you kind of reflects that. And then if we're all doing that, this planet is only going to be a more abundant and fantastical place.
Thank you so much, Danielle.
Thank you so much.
Great to connect.
Too. Yeah, lovely.
All the best.
Thank you.
Yeah.